This is the Let's Get Real Estate Show with your host, Danielle Chason.
Full-time investor, strategic consultant, motivational coach, sought-after speaker,
and host of your number one real estate investing show, Let's Get Real Estate,
where real people are doing real estate.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Let's Get Real Estate podcast. This is Danielle Chason here. I am your host of the podcast, and today I have Adriana Ostapenko with me, and I'm super excited to have Adriana on because, like me, she's a full-time real estate investor, mom of two, and juggling all kinds of stuff, supporting work with the real estate investing, and she's supporting her husband's work in the construction business and trying to be a mom and all of that crazy stuff. So Adriana, I know you got a lot on your plate. I can totally identify with you. That's why I'm so excited to have you on. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit, but welcome to the show, Adriana. Woo,
woo. Thanks, Danielle. It's such a pleasure to be here. Obviously, it's a pleasure to hang out with you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I'm just, Adriana, where do we start with you? Let's start here. I want to start where you started in real estate because your backstory is this. So you had a construction business with your husband, and you still have, actually, right? And then you got the real estate bug through doing work for clients that were investors. Isn't that right?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got the bug, and then you joined a couple of real estate groups, found out that there's, the whole world outside of what you knew to be real estate. I think for most people, we think, okay, real estate means, you buy something and you rent it out and become a landlord, but there is a whole other world behind that. And so, what did you do in order to break into the real estate space?
Yeah, it was such an interesting journey from having that first interaction with those investors and really just getting a grasp for the fact that they don't seem to be particularly, way ahead of us in life or something. And I'm like, if they're doing this, it just normalized it for me. I'm like, if they're doing these, they were doing really high end flips out in Caledon here in the GTA. And we were being hired to deliver flips. So it just clicked. And I said, okay, how could we just not do the work, but actually own the properties and make the profits? Which just, gave me that little first light bulb, led me to some education about this. So I did go through a path of education and learned more about it, and immediately clicked with me. Although there was so much to learn, it clicked on the potential of real estate and how much it made sense. And it really led us to start investing. We started with a very common strategy for a lot of people who start with zero money like we did, which is house hacking. And that's exactly what we started ourselves.
Can you expand a little bit on what house hacking is for the viewers or the listeners that are on that might not know what that means exactly?
Yeah, exactly. Sure, of course. So house hacking really means that you start off your investing by using your primary residence. So you're just using creative strategies to use the current place that you live in to get started in real estate. In our case, we had just recently bought, about a year before we did our education, we had bought a townhouse in Mississauga here in the GTA and had really put all of our savings as a down payment to this home. Now, at the time, I was on maternity leave and my husband was just starting his construction business and, at the very beginning stages. So we were really didn't have any resources to get started. And that's when we attended the education and we immediately felt stuck. And how do we go about doing this? The only thing we really had was our primary home.
Well, you got to start somewhere, right? And so, and then you took that townhouse and then you made it into a duplex, right?
That's right. So that was my first experience with conversions, really going through the process from, working with a draftsperson to put together a plan to apply to the city of Mississauga. I actually have a funny story about that because it's a townhouse. So for the first 5 times I went to the city to discuss the plans to convert this into a legal duplex, I heard a no. And it very quickly, but this is also my personality, learned the power of persistence. Because ultimately I was targeting immediately. I'm like, so why a no? It's a no because you can't create a separate entrance. It's a townhouse. Okay, so how about if I create a separate entrance inside the house? It so happened that the stairs to the basement was right at the entrance. So what if I put a wall and a door here? Can we use that? Okay, sure, I guess you could. But no, but why not? Because you don't have an extra parking spot. I'm like, well, can you show me in the bylaws where it says I went through the bylaws with them to figure out that if the house had been built, at a certain period of time, that didn't apply. So went through a lot of stages of hearing no's and pursuing, persisting. Because my philosophy is keep asking, keep knocking until you hear that final no. Even then, there's always another way around it. So kept pushing, got the permits from the city. We did a legal basement apartment in our house and got it rented out right away. It was an amazing experience for us in getting started in real estate. It was an additional, $1,200 we were getting a month of income, and that we had never experienced before, and really got the bug there as well. Yeah, that was how we got started.
And the nice thing about doing a duplex conversion like that too is the value of the property would have gone up substantially too, right? So what the work, the amount of investment that you were doing in the property and the amount of work that you were putting into it would have come back to you multiple times, not just in the amount. Like the value of your property didn't just go up by the amount of money that you put into it, it exponentially went up, right?
That's correct. And this is where our house hacking continued, because by the time we were done, we were still in a position where the money was in the property, wasn't in our pockets. And we were still in a similar situation with our qualifying power. So we decided to sell our house, which is crazy to a lot of people. But to us, it made sense because we knew that there was so much more that we could go towards. There was so much more we could do in real estate, and we were ready to do a jump. So we sold our house, moved into a rental in the area, same school zone for the kids, actually much nicer home, detached, and used those funds to start our investing career.
And then, so what did you do with that? So you
Yeah,
said you use
so
those funds.
that's right. So then we implemented one of the strategies we were taught when we were doing our education, which was drive for dollars. So really, we went looking for a place that made sense to buy. In that case, this is back in 2018. We bought a single family home in Hamilton. Something that I really focused on from the beginning was trying to really understand, because I went through the process with our house in Mississauga, I knew that I needed to check zoning. So really spent some time figuring out where would the most optimal place to purchase in Hamilton, and figured it out, where the LRT zoning had come into place, and they were allowing for mid to high density. So went to that area, bought a very rundown single family home. It was quite a large home, and we went through the process of converting it into a legal fourplex.
That's awesome. And you still own that today?
So we just sold that this year. We just liquidated
Oh,
that asset. Yeah. It
yay.
did really well for us. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so for the listeners that are out there, buying real estate isn't just buying and holding and waiting until you get enough equity or appreciation, to pull out and then reinvest. You can do it creatively by selling and reallocating. I think the problem for some people is that when they sell, they don't reallocate or reinvest that money elsewhere. But it is one strategy that you can use where you can grow a lot quicker, a lot faster, because you pull out that equity, reinvest it somewhere else, do, an improvement to increase the value of the home and uplift, the home, in your case, a home into a fourplex, which is amazing. I love that. So I want to talk about the challenges that, oh, wait a minute. And on that note, so you sold those ones, but I think to date, you've got 38 doors under management. Is that right?
That's right.
38. And you started this when?
So we did our education in 2017. That's when we started working in our own
Right.
house.
So 2017 on the townhouse, and we're just over 4 years in, and you're at 38 doors. And that is just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So to your point earlier, being able to sell the first house, although scary, really gave us the boost to get to where we are now, and then being able to sell these houses. We just liquidated 2 properties this year. Is allowing us to be able to scale even further into apartment building acquisitions.
Right. And you currently have a 24 unit. And so like that's where like it just really starts growing and you start kind of exponentially growing. And and here's the thing, I also want to point out, I happen to my audience, I just want you guys to know, I know Adriana personally. We've gotten to know each other quite well. And so I might have some intimate knowledge a little bit about her background and portfolio, but here's what I'm
Little
going to say. A little, maybe a little too much, yes. But here's what I want to say. You have, when you, a lot of people that are out there, and this is what I want the audience to know. A lot of people that are out there have limiting beliefs over what they can and can't do, and whether or not they can or cannot go into the real estate space. You come from a background that was just a regular working class people, save your money, buy bonds. You know, they didn't invest on a high level, like bonds, pretty much it. You know, work hard, you know, try to save what you can for retirement, right? And yourself, you and your husband own a construction company. Now, everybody knows how hard it is to get financing when you're self-employed. And you also were on mat leave because you have little kids, right? And you were on mat leave for a long time. And then you worked for, and still do work for your husband. So, so having said all of that, I just want my audience to know that, hey, just because you're self-employed and just because maybe you don't have the income doesn't mean you can't make it happen. So I want to talk to you, Adriana, about, and I think it'd be really beneficial to the audience to talk about, you know, those limiting beliefs. Like, how do you go from not being able to qualify for a mortgage, not having the income on paper that the banks want, not being able to check off, you know, those check boxes that the bank needs you to check off, to owning a 24 unit apartment building and then some? Like, you've got a few quads and you got the apartment building. So like, I'm just curious because I think it'll be really beneficial for the audience to hear, you know, how you were able to transition into that.
Yeah, that's an amazing question because ultimately, the way I see this, uh, it's a process of becoming. Once you have your goals and those things that you would like to accomplish, now you are setting out on a journey to become the person who's going to accomplish those goals. Because I wasn't that person originally. And it took, a process of really growing and expanding and learning and pushing myself and self-awareness, a lot of clarity on like, my beliefs. And I really stop and I think, does this belief serve me? For example, like debt. A lot of people have problem with debt. I don't want to get, and this was my family. My family was completely, it still is to an extent. They've certainly converted over and invest with us now, but just really against debt. And as you know, the real estate is a game, is a game of, the good type of debt. But ultimately being able to get comfortable with that took a journey on my own of understanding what's wrong with that. And can it serve me? Yes, it can. So how can I switch that pattern of belief that I have because it doesn't serve me, and be able to expand into a new belief that actually I can leverage a lot of money here with really low interest rates to grow wealth beyond our imagination. It's been only 4 years. It's crazy to think it's only been, a short amount of time that we've been doing this, but it completely changed our lives. It changed the landscape of not only for us, but our family. And that's absolutely incredible through a process of really changing your beliefs, questioning where are they coming from and do they serve you? And if they don't, go find other beliefs. Go figure out who else is doing the things that you want to be doing, that are accomplishing the things you want to be accomplishing. What do they believe in and how do they operate? Because it just really normalizes it for you. How to do something like this. We went from, owning, that duplex to a fourplex to 2 4plexes to now we bought a 7 unit, a 24 unit, and have a 6 unit in a contract in 1 year, which is absolutely crazy for us.
So, okay. So, but on that, with the belief system and those limiting beliefs, what is the one thing that, what was the one limiting belief that was really holding you back that you broke through?
I think the fear of failure, ultimately it gets to a lot of people, because if you like, I sold my house. I had 2 little kids. My family was like, you're insane. Like you joined the cult. What happened? Something happened. We had recently bought the house. We just finished renovating. We not only finished the basement, we renovated the whole upstairs. Um, and my family just looked at me, and my friends at the time and my network at the time just looked at me and thought I was crazy. And you feel a little crazy at the time as well. And you're like, okay. And I went in with the perspective of, if I crash and burn, which by the way, although lots of learning lessons, it has not happened, thankfully. And I'm so grateful for that. But my feeling was, if I crash and burn on this experience, what do I have to lose? And what do I have to gain? If I get this, and even if it goes terribly wrong, it's okay. It's not a failure. It's only a failure if you stop moving. It's a learning lesson. I'm going to learn, I'm going to do it better next time, and I'm going to keep pushing forward until I get to my goals. And that perspective really gave me a lot of motivation to move forward. Don't get me wrong, it was a massive learning lesson taking that fourplex on. It was a ton of work, and I'm glad to share the experience anytime with anybody who wants to touch base on that. But it really gave us that first, hey, I can do this. We bought that property for $340,000 back in the summer of 2018. We put in 9 months of work on it to convert it into a legal fourplex. We refinanced it within the same year at $700,000. And that alone gave me that first boost confidence of like, yep, we can do this. We're on the right path. Let's keep going.
So here's an interesting thing. It's hard enough to sell your home, but to sell your home and then go into a rental, like that's massive. Like in order to be able to do that, you're undertaking and accepting a lot of risk, because ultimately you're giving up your home that you own in order to move into a rental, invest the money from your home and hope it works out. So like just the mental, right? So just the mental, I don't know, the mental strength and capacity to make that move, it's ballsy. It's 100% ballsy. But what would you say was the one thing that allowed, because, well, first of all, you feel like you're taking a step back. I mean, you're going from being a homeowner into a rental, right? So you feel like you're taking a big step back. And then you don't qualify because you're self-employed. If it doesn't work out, am I ever going to get financing again to buy another home is another question, right? So, but how do you, what would you say, Adriana, is the one thing that helped you be able to take that ballsy step and give you the confidence in order to know you were doing the right thing?
I take on the personality of a learner, and I figured out that I was going to learn and I was going to do better, whatever that took. It also is a mindset shift in how you view things. We went from owning our primary, that, even though once we had a basement tenant to give us some income, but we were still paying into it every month, to within 3 years owning fourplexes that were cash flowing about, $6,000 to $8,000 a month. And so we went from owning one home to owning four, that were not only, not taking anything from us, it was paying us. Mm-hmm. So I could foresee that, not having my primary would allow us to really grow in other ways. And I wasn't really losing anything. I just had something to gain, by learning through the process, and then by trusting. So faith, or belief, or the ability to imagine your desired outcome will bring you to a whole new level. Because if you can just imagine it, you start living it, you start believing it, it becomes a reality before it actually is. The ability to see that we could go somewhere far, that we could really build wealth, was, I think, the very first lifeline that I had to be able to imagine a future that was so different than we were currently living at the time.
Right. But it's tough. Like, even then, like, something had to give you the confidence to be able to, because you didn't know when you sold your primary and you bought the other single family house, you knew you were going to convert it, but you didn't know it was going to then turn into 3 quads, and then now, a 7 and 24 and all that. So like, what would you say gave you that, like, was there something, so the mindset shift, just having that belief and being able to imagine it, like you said, to imagine your desired outcome and have the confidence to be able to do the work to make it happen. But was there anything in particular, or would you say it was just a combination of a whole bunch of factors that were in your life, like having a construction background, having the education, the network? Like, I'm sure there's a few things that happened, but was there anything in particular that stands out to
Yeah,
you?
I do understand your question. I guess it comes to my why, really, at the bottom of that. And I didn't see any other way. Um, to me, we had a couple of things here. One is we had our kids, and kids are massive motivated to a lot of people because I want to give them the world. I want to give them, be able to give them and set them up for life, right? There's definitely a lot of motivation that, but we also had a different component to it, which was really our parents that immigrated later in life to Canada and didn't quite have enough resources to retire or live, a comfortable life later on. I was very aware of that from early on and realized not only do I have to build wealth for myself, I have to figure out a way to build wealth for myself. I have to build a wealth, to also transcend us and pass it on to my mom. And one of my biggest whys was to be able to walk into my mom's home and say, "Here, you're mortgage free. I just paid off your mortgage," and really give that kind of freedom to our family. And um, that was behind of, like, I'm willing to try, almost anything, but which to me, like I said, it just made sense too. Like, I knew that there was a lot of power in what we were doing, but I was willing to try it, and I was willing to risk what we had accumulated up to that point, um, to gain much, much more in return and be able to provide a life changing, and forever going impact in our family life.
Right. So I think having a powerful why, if I'm hearing you correctly, having a powerful why that's kind of motivating you and pushing you, and having the confidence, and then also making that mindset shift, like you said, with changing how you looked at things and looking at debt as good debt, and all of that kind of really gave you the courage that you needed in order to do that. So kudos to you. That's amazing. That is freaking amazing. Look at you go now. So what would you say though, people that are doing that too, they got to figure out, where do you start? How do you put that all together? What does it look like? Because I'm sure it didn't look as clear to you now, because now you're essentially running a real estate investing business, but in the beginning it doesn't feel that way. So what would how did you put it all together, and what would you tell the audience, for the listeners out there that are just starting or that are thinking about doing a similar move? How do you put it all together? Where do you start?
Yeah, great question. So, going back to a couple of things we just said, having your why clear, you probably hear that a lot, and generally in the world of wealth building, like you having that motivator that's going to keep you moving you forward. Secondly, having the power of imagination. I know I brought that up earlier, and it's always been something that's been so important to me. Allowing yourself, how many of us really allow ourselves to think, um, what is my ideal life, and not put any limits to it, not let our beliefs or our lack of confidence really stop us from imagining what that looks like. Because very often I'll be talking to somebody and they'll be talking, well, I want to be in my job for another number of years, and then I can do something. And I like to ask the question, is that really what you want to do? Like, just think about it. If you had any choice in the world of how you want to be spending your time, your days, be honest. What would you rather be doing, if anything? Maybe you do like your job, but allowing yourself to really imagine and let your imagination takes you where it goes, starts giving you clarity on what kind of life you want to live. Because when people say, I want to be a full-time real estate investor, or I want to do bursts for a living, do you like construction? Because if you don't, then you're probably in the wrong strategy. Do you like, oh, I want to own all these units and manage myself? Do you like property management? You know, and if you don't know if you like it or not, I think a really great way to gain some clarity in that is talk to somebody who does property management and ask them, what does your day look like? What kind of, things are you talking about? What are you handling? What are your activities? And see if that's a good match for your skill set, for your passion. Because ultimately, I feel like what a lot of us want out of real estate investing is freedom. And as we know, Danielle, very well, as being a full time real estate investor, that could sometimes look not just like that when we're doing this full time, because it is a lot of work. So, are you passionate about the tasks you would be doing if you were to become a full time real estate investor? Would you be passionate about these specific types of tasks? And if not, that's where you start to gain clarity on what strategy you want to use, how much time you want to commit, what kind of resources you want to allocate to that. Make sure to consider your why and your lifestyle choices from the beginning.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And especially like when you are honest with yourself and then you can dial in exactly what you're saying, what I like doing, what I don't like doing, then you can consider, well, do I need a partner? Do I bring somebody else in? Do I delegate or do I change strategies? Yeah, that's all great points. Thank you for sharing that. Ultimately, moving forward, if you could give one solid piece of advice to everybody who's listening right now, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I ultimately being able to imagine what your life can look like, and then taking the time to become that person that can live that life, because nothing is out of your reach, nothing is impossible, nothing, anything that you want you can indeed accomplish. So just allow yourself to imagine as far as you can and as big as you can, then work at becoming that person that's going to live that life. And it's so crazy how it just happens and it just comes to you. You're manifesting how you live your life every day, and then sooner rather than later you're there, and it's incredible.
So you said something here, manifest, like imagine it and then work at becoming that person. And I think a lot of people, especially with manifestation, there's some people out there that don't buy into the whole manifestation thing. It's like, well, just because I think it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But ultimately, because there's that missing piece that you just mentioned, and work at becoming that person that you want to be, or work at obtaining the things that you want to get in life. I think there's like you've done a tremendous amount of work, and I want to give you kudos to that. And it's not easy. Like everybody thinks because they see what we have that it just kind of happened. It didn't. It didn't happen. We worked for it, and we worked very hard for it. And there's a lot of sweat and tears and self-doubt and problems and fires, little fires, big fires. And so I just want to give you kudos to that. But I think what you said just warrants being repeated. You have to not just imagine it, not just manifest it, but then work for it, right? Um, Adriana Ostapenko, I absolutely love you. I'm so glad that you have come onto the show to share your story with my listeners, because honestly, your story is real. It's real, it's raw, and it's what we all go through. And so I really think that there's a lot of value that you brought to the table today that's going to help a lot of listeners. And I appreciate you being so open and transparent and sharing with me and with my listeners. For those of you who are on, I just want to thank you as well. Thank you for listening, because without you guys, well, it would all be in vain. I love you guys. Thank you for jumping on and listening to the show. Don't forget to like the episode, share it if you feel that somebody could benefit from it. You also need to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to know when we release the next episode. And most importantly, dear to my heart, comment. Let me know what you think. Share with Adriana if you connect with her story. Comment in the notes below. Adriana, if anybody wants to reach out to you to find out a little bit more, or even potentially work with you or partner with you now that you're doing bigger units, I know that you're always looking to work with people and help them and then create win-win strategies. How would they reach out to you?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to connect if you want to learn more about apartment building investing, and then or would like to do some investing yourself. Reach out on Facebook or Instagram. It's just my name, Adriana Ostapenko. And I'd love to connect and book a time to have a conversation.
So if you want to find her on Facebook or IG, guys, you just have to type in her name. It's Adriana, Adriana, only one N, and Ostapenko is Ostapenko. And that's all going to be in the show notes below. So if you're driving, don't stop, don't pull over, don't write it down, leave it alone, come back to this, or just check the show notes later, guys. It's also up on our website. All of her information is in her bio at letsgetrealestate.com. Let's get realestatePodcast.com. And yeah, Adriana, thank you so much. I look forward to when we see each other again and get to reconnect. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
This is Danielle Chason for the Let's Get Real Estate podcast, where real people are doing real estate. Bye for now.